When we say the Xerox 914 makes copies on ordinary paper, we mean ordinary paper. For instance, office stationery. Or how about plain bond paper? Now, if that isn't ordinary enough, wait a minute. To prove the point, I'll cut up some brown wrapping paper. How much more ordinary can you get? If seeing is believing, let's actually make copies on our ordinary papers. We'll put them here in the paper loading tray. We push the on button. Let's make a copy of this page from a book. That's right, a page from a book. There goes the stationery, the bond paper, and the wrapping paper. Here comes the stationery and our bond paper and the wrapping paper. Perfect copies, dry copies. It takes an extraordinary machine to make copies on ordinary paper. The Xerox 914.
Do you know what company invented the fax machine? Imagine having the greatest invention of the 20th century in your hands and giving it away because you don't know what to do with it. Xerox did just that. Hello, world. Welcome, I am your host Mr. Stagg. Today we will be discussing the Xerox Corporation, ticker symbol XRX, one of the world's first tech giants. Before we get into the video, do not forget to like, share, and subscribe. Xerox officially opened its doors in 1906, when it was bought by a man named Gilbert E. Mosher. Back then, it was called the Haloid Company, and it started as a small photography business. In 1936, Haloids went public after acquiring the Rectigraph Company, a business that specialized in selling photocopying machines. Rectigraphs became Haloid's major selling item at the time. In 1938, Chester Carlson, a physicist working independently, invented a process for printing images using an electrically charged photoconductor-coated metal plate and dry powder toner. However, it would take more than 20 years of refinement before the first automated machine to make copies was commercialized, using a document feeder, scanning light, and a rotating drum. In 1944, Mosher and his son, Joseph C. Wilson, credited as the founder of Xerox, took over Haloid from his father. He saw the promise of Carlson's invention and, in 1946, signed an agreement to develop it as a commercial product. Looking for a term to differentiate its new system, Haloid coined the term xerography from two Greek roots meaning dry writing. Haloid changed its name to Haloid Xerox in 1958 and then Xerox Corporation in 1961. The word Xerox was once a household name that had a specific meaning, copy. Later, Xerox merged with Fujifilm in Japan for more exposure in the Asian market. Wilson remained as president, CEO of Xerox until 1967 and served as chairman until his death in 1971. The company saw a real growth in the 60s. In 1963, Xerox introduced the Xerox 813, the first desktop plain paper copier, realizing Carlson's vision of a copier that could fit on anyone's office desk. 10 years later in 1973, a basic analog, color copier based on the 914 was introduced. Xerox's first charge into duplicating, as distinct from copying, they were most reliable machines that time. The 914 alone brought business around $60 million in 1961 and it brought revenue of $500 million by 1965. Making Xerox one of the wealthiest companies during its time. Xerox introduced the Xerox 6500, its first color copier. The company later improved their quality design and realignment of its product line. Attempting to expand beyond copiers, in 1981 Xerox introduced a line of electronic memory typewriters, the Memory Writer, which gained 20% market share, mostly at the cost of IBM under the leadership of David T. Kearns. Xerox was a successful company till the 1970s with many sensational products and a lot of revenue, but because of some misleading decisions, wrong assumption and ineffective ideologies, there were many mistakes done by Xerox board members which slowly led to their company's downfall and lose the market share, and there are many reasons. The reason why Xerox is essentially not heard of anymore is simply forgot about the power of its brand and it lacks innovation in its product line. When Xerox was first created, their mission was easy for consumers to understand, make it easier for businesses to communicate information. Somewhere along the way, their vision became muddled. The company's xerography patents began expiring in the early 1970s, and its 95% share of the market diminished. By 1982, its portion of the U.S. copier business had declined to 13% under an onslaught of cut-price copiers imported from Japan. In 1979, Xerox purchased Western Union International (WUI) as the basis for its proposed Xerox Telecommunications Network (XTEN), and soon realized that it was a mistake and sold that asset to MCI, a competitor of AT&T, at a loss. Xerox's senior management failed to recognize new technologies that would supplant Xerox's copier technology. The sad thing is that Xerox invented world-changing technology and they failed at sales and marketing. A few of the most advanced and revolutionary products in the world came from one place, the Palo Alto Research Center. In 1970, under company president C. Peter McLeod, Xerox Corporation opened this research center with an aim of inventing new technological origins, and a few of most successful innovations were graphical user interface, the laser printer, and the Ethernet. One of Xerox's ideas in the 70s was the Xerox Alto. The Xerox Alto was truly the first personalized computer with LAN, Ethernet, user interface and first ever computer with copy and paste options, a QWERTY-type keyboard. A paperless office of the future, and it was a completely revolutionary concept in 1973. The Xerox management did not understand what they had, and they did not have the vision of what the future of computer technology possible could be. In 1979, Steve Jobs, founder of Apple, made a deal with Xerox's venture capital division. He would let them invest $1 million in an exchange of inside developments of Xerox Research Center. Steve Jobs saw the commercial potential of the WIMP, Windows, icon, and menu and pointing device, and he redirected these technologies in his Apple Lisa. Jobs was invited to PARC to discuss with researchers to complete and carry out their ideas. Jobs quote saying this, "They just had no idea what they had." Similar software used in the Xerox Alto is used in our mobile phone today. Later in 1984, Apple bought rights for Graphic User Interface (GUI) and a mouse from Xerox Corporation for the Apple Macintosh. The Macintosh was the first personal computer with the simple usage. Lots of 80s media and Apple haters claim that Steve Jobs stole valuable information from Xerox PARC and used the information for Apple's benefit. Steve Wozniak, co-founder of Apple, responded to the critics saying, "Steve Jobs made the case to Xerox PARC execs directly that they had the great technology but that Apple knew how to make it affordable enough to change the world." This was very open. In the end, Xerox got a large block of Apple stock for sharing the technology. That's not stealing outright.
So they were very skillful.
Yeah. But they did show us.
Yeah.
So, and it's good that they showed us, because the technology crashed and burned at Xerox. And they used to call the, what's that?
No, I was just...
Why?
Yeah, why?
Oh, I actually thought a lot about that, and I learned more about that with John Scully later on, and I think I understand it now pretty well. What happens is, like with John Scully. John came from PepsiCo, and they at most would change their product, once every 10 years. I mean, to them, a new product was like a new size bottle, right? So if you were a product person, you couldn't change the course of that company very much. So who influenced the success of PepsiCo? The sales and marketing people. Therefore, they were the ones that got promoted, and therefore they were the ones that ran the company. Well, for PepsiCo, that might have been okay, but it turns out the same thing can happen in technology companies that get monopolies, like, IBM and Xerox. If you were a product person at IBM or Xerox, so you make a better copy or a better computer. So what? When you have a monopoly market share, the company's not any more successful. So the people that can make the company more successful are sales and marketing people. And they end up running the companies. And the product people get driven out of the decision-making forums. And the companies forget what it means to make great products. Sort of the product sensibility and the product genius that brought them to that monopolistic position gets rotted out by people running these companies who have no conception of a good product versus a bad product. They have no conception of the craftsmanship that's required to take a good idea and turn it into a good product. And they really have no feeling in their hearts, usually, about wanting to really help the customers. So that's what happened at Xerox. The people at Xerox PARC used to call the people that ran Xerox toner heads. And these toner heads would come out to Xerox PARC, and they just had no clue about what they were seeing.
And for our audience, toner is what?
Oh, toner is what you put into a copier. Yeah, the toner that you add to an industrial copier.
The black stuff.
The black stuff, yeah. So basically, they were copier heads that just had no clue about a computer or what it could do. And so they just grabbed defeat from the greatest victory in the computer industry. Xerox could have owned the entire computer industry today. Could have been, a company 10 times its size. Could have been IBM. Could have been the IBM of the 90s. Could have been the Microsoft of the 90s. So, but anyway, that's all ancient history. It doesn't really matter anymore.
Sure.
Xerox's major downfall came in 1981 when they introduced the Xerox Star, a workstation produced with the sole purpose of managing documents was placed on the market for a whopping $16,000. Now, when this is compared to IBM's PC for Business that was selling for $1,600, it's easy to guess which brand sold more. To make matters worse, Xerox eventually decided to move into insurance and financial services, which is a complete 180 from what they began with. They then took on the burdens of being in collaboration with EZ-Pass, automated traffic tickets, and even Medicaid. Now, innovation is definitely important, especially for a company, but Xerox skipped innovation and just went straight to being a completely different company. Xerox Holdings Corporation today is an American corporation that designs, develops, and sells document management systems and solutions. It offers intelligent workplace services, and digital services that leverage its software capabilities in workflow automation, personalization and communication software, content management solutions, and digitization services. The company also provides desktop monochrome, and color and multifunction printers, digital printing presses and light production devices, and solutions, graphic communications and production solutions, and IT services, such as PC and network infrastructure, communications technology, and network administration, as well as cloud and on-server support services. In more than 160 countries. On December 31, 2016, Xerox separated its business process service operations into a new publicly traded company, Conduent. In November 2019, Xerox began to pursue a hostile takeover of PC and printer manufacturer HP Inc. On March 5, HP revealed that its board of directors has unanimously declined Xerox's $24 a share cash and stock offer. Xerox's current stock price at the time of this video is $18.43 with a market cap of $3.29 billion. The stock is currently undervalued according to Simply Wall Street by 40.4% with a fair value price of $30.88. The company has a P/E ratio of 11.6%. The company has a P/B ratio of 0.6%, which is undervalued based on the industry P/B ratio of 2.3%. Xerox currently pays a 5.4% dividend with a payout ratio of 67%. Earnings per share of 1.59, a gross margin of 35.02%, a net profit margin of 3.94%, and a debt-to-equity ratio of 79.7%. The company's earnings have been declining. Carlson owns 17.99% of the company. Xerox was a successful company till the 1970s with many sensational products and a lot of revenue, but because of some misleading decisions, wrong assumption and ineffective ideologies, there were many mistakes done by Xerox board members which slowly led to their company's downfall and lose the market share in the tech sector. The X in Xerox's logo symbolized the transition of documents between the paper and digital worlds, which is ironic considering its failed transition. What is the future of Xerox? Will Apple fail to innovate and fall just like Xerox? Tell us what you think in the comment section below. Mr. Stag logging off.